I'm so excited to be here this week with someone who really does not need an introduction, but I will introduce her anyway. We have here today Batsheva Haart, a former reality TV star. You may have seen her from the show My Unorthodox Life. She is currently a Miami girl as well and living in this beautiful city as a content creator and lifestyle influencer. So Batsheva, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here. Welcome to Miami. It's a great place to be.
Thank you. Yes, loving it so far. I know we have so much to talk about, from your journey growing up in Monsey, New York, to New York City, to now being in Miami. And, you know, this podcast is all about Jewish influence and really establishing a Jewish voice. And I feel like you've done that in a really unique manner. And someone like myself, and maybe for others listening, like I truthfully don't have much exposure to the world that you grew up in. So I'd love to start with your background and your upbringing, and especially as a woman, like what was that like growing up in Monsey, New York?
So I grew up actually in Atlanta, Georgia until I was 11. So I had like a very interesting, like I grew up in a little more culturally diverse upbringing when I was like really young, and then I went to like Monsey, New York, which is like super, super strict. And like I went from like I had to wear like knee socks under my like long skirts as like an 11-year-old, and I remember being like, what is this? But it was kind of all I knew. It was very like everything was very insular. It was like in a little bubble that I lived in, and I wasn't really subjected to anything else. I thought there was only one way to be Jewish. Like I was like, if you, God forbid, wear pants or dress like me right now, like you're going to hell or you're a really bad person. And it was just I didn't know anything else. I thought there was one way to live and one way to be Jewish. And that I think was like the biggest like shift in my perspective when my mom left the community and kind of just like started living in different places and brought me different places that I was able to be like, wait, there's other ways to live in this world. Because where I grew up, everyone, if you weren't doing what everyone was doing, then you were like a drug addict, or you were like a bum, or you were, you know, living a really sad, miserable life. And that was what I thought it would be like. And then I like got out of it and I'm like, wait, there's like so many ways to be Jewish, or so many ways to celebrate tradition or whatever you believe in. And it's been a really wonderful journey. So I feel very thankful.
Yeah, and your mom is obviously the main reason you and your siblings were able to see this other world. So when you were living in Monsey, and I apologize if this is a silly question, but as a Reformed Jew myself, like I consider myself very cultural, you were obviously living an ultra-orthodox life. Is that what you would call it?
Yeah, ultra-orthodox,
okay. So did people in the community have access to social media? Like how did your mother even know that there was this other world out there?
Definitely not social media. Like I was also 32. So I remember in high school, like Facebook was a thing, but I didn't know what it was. Like I would go to sleepaway camp and my friends from like Brooklyn were like a little bit more in the know, and they would talk about like Gossip Girl and things like that. And I wasn't allowed to watch that. And I wasn't like, we weren't allowed to have internet on our like at home, but like we had it like sneaking because my dad had it for work, but I would never like go on it. I definitely didn't have any access to social media. I downloaded Instagram when I got married in 2012, and I was like, what is this? I didn't even know. I remember my friend in camp had like an iPod, and I was like, what's an iPod? Like, what is this? I like had her say it to me a million times. So I was I really didn't have access to anything.
You were super sheltered, which
super
is so crazy, because now like flip side, like here you are wearing a crop top, you are an influencer, like your main career is being on social media, being on shows and on TV, and like that is just totally a 180 from how you grew up.
I think also like even when I was living in Monsey when I started doing social media, but I was like subjected to a few other people. Like I started being friends with people who were like a little more modernized. And even though I was still like super religious, I wasn't as religious as like ultra orthodox. I would say I was more like became more orthodox at that point. And I found friends who like had boyfriends in high school, but they still like kept full Shabbat and full kosher. But they were just like my leaving the community was like super gradual, and I like went through like evolutions of different phases to get to where I am today.
And were you the first of your two siblings to end up like making the jump and following your mother?
So I have three siblings.
Oh, three
I
siblings.
have a younger brother, sister, and then a little brother. I would say my sister was the first one to like kind of go with my mom. She left home when she was 16. She moved to California. My parents supported her. And then my brother was more soon after that, probably on a similar path to me. But I was super gradual because I was married and everything. Like he married me one way. And then we like both gradually, every step we took together for the most part until I would say the end. It was very like, how do you feel? How do I feel? And we would talk about it, and then we would decide together if we wanted to like move in a different direction. And my youngest brother was like 5 or 7 at the time, so he just grew up in a more modern Orthodox like household with my dad, who became less religious but still religious. So we all kind of like shifted in our own way. And that's why my family show, My Unorthodox Life, was very like to show how we're all Jewish, but we all celebrate it in a different way. And we've all had our own journeys with like finding ourselves within the culture and religion.
Yeah. And it's just so interesting that like in every religion, right, there's so many sectors of what it means to be Jewish. And you've certainly channeled like one level of Judaism to another level where today you don't even really consider yourself religious,
Yeah,
right?
I don't consider myself religious at all. I would say I'm like very proud of my Jewish identity and I love the culture, but religion itself, like I don't partake in.
So can you describe that at all, like in terms of what it means to still be spiritual, but maybe not be religious?
Yeah, I believe, like, I don't know that I believe in, like, I don't like the term God to me personally because I have, like, a negative connotation to it, but I believe in a higher power. Like, I like saying the universe, but I know the universe could be transcribed into God as well. So it's like whatever you believe in, but I believe that there are, like, traditions. You know, my blood is Jewish. I did 23andMe. I'm, like, 99.6% Jewish Ashkenaz. So, like, my lineage is super clear. I'm very proud of that. And I think there's a difference between culturally being Jewish and religiously. Like religion to me is like rules and regulations. This is how you should act. This is how you should dress. This is how you should feel. Whereas culture is like tradition. Like I would love to do like Shabbat dinner with my kids. I think like family time is a beautiful tradition that Jewish people have. And like the holidays, whereas like I don't know how I would celebrate them down the line. I still like think about that because I don't know where I stand. But I think like being proud of your identity and where you come from is super important. I just don't like the rules and regulations that come with religion personally. I respect them for everyone else. It's just not how I choose to live my life.
Right. And it's unfortunate because you were these rules and regulations that you associate with religion were forced upon you in this community. And going off of that, because, you know, today the woman that I see is like a strong, independent woman. Like you have your own career, you're single, you're dating, you're just like living your best life, right? But in this ultra-orthodox community, a woman has like a sole purpose. Can you talk a little bit more about just like what it means to be a woman in that community and how your mindset has shifted from that to who you are today? Because I can imagine that was really difficult.
Definitely. I think growing up, I always thought I would be modern Orthodox. I never like truly identified with the way that I was raised. I was kind of always like, I'm not going to live my life how I'm raised. Like it will be a little different. I could only see the scope of like being modern Orthodox. I didn't see myself being able to live any other way. Like how I live now, I would have never dreamed. But I didn't want to be like a full-time stay-at-home mom. I knew that like as a very young kid. I was always trying to figure out like what I could do and also be a mom. That's still very important to me. I will be a mom one day, but I like originally thought I'd be like a hairstylist because where I grew up, like wear a wig when you get married, and I wore a wig for years also. Yeah. That was the first thing to go. I was like, fuck this. My hair is beautiful. I don't want to cover it.
And why? Can you just share a little bit more for people that don't, like, why do you wear a wig?
So you're supposed to wear a wig because your hair is very sacred and it's very sensual and it's meant for only your husband's eyes. Because like, God forbid, I don't want to disrespect anyone who's listening, but like, God forbid your hair should show and like turn on another man. So instead you wear a wig, but like a lot of the wigs are like way nicer than many people's hair. Like, I don't understand it. To me, it doesn't make sense. But again, that was.
Wait, how many wigs did you have?
I had 4. But the one thing I will say that was fun was I was always changing my hairstyle. Like one day I'd wear a bob, and then one day I'd wear curly hair, and then one day I'd wear long hair. Switched it up. And I loved hairstyling. So I was like, this is a perfect career for me to have because I can like make my own hours, and I can do like I've always been very creative. So I was like, I can do this and be a mom, and it's like still like accepted within the community as like an okay job for women to have.
Got it. Wow. So you went from wanting to be a hairstylist to.
So I did. I went to cosmetology school. I worked in a hair salon in Israel called Femme Coiffure. It was across from Amila Hotel. Learned a lot of Hebrew there, even though I like grew up listening to it. And then I realized that I didn't want to do that anymore. When I moved back to the US, I was like, I don't want to work in a salon. The only thing I was really interested in was like editorial hair, but all of those jobs you had to be available on Saturday. And I was like, okay, time for a new career. So I pivoted.
Yeah, with Shabbat.
that was Shabbat, yeah.
So, and going back to like your marriage. So in the community, do you have to wait until marriage?
Yeah. I saved myself for marriage.
So you saved yourself for marriage. Mm-hmm. And how old were you when you
19.
got married? Okay.
Yeah. So it was still young.
That's really young. And how long were you actually married for?
9 years. Yeah, long time.
Yeah, so you guys fully made the transition together, like out of the community. What was the most, I guess, like culture shock to you when you left the community?
I would say just that there were so many different ways to be Jewish. That was just like the biggest shock. I remember I went to like a UJA event when I don't know if I had first moved. I had started social media, so like my name was like getting out there a little bit. I was still like wearing a wig and wearing skirts and like covering myself, but I was like a little bit more like put into normal society, I guess. And I was invited to this event, and I went, and I was like, whoa, like there are all these people there like wearing pants, and like they're all celebrating being Jewish. And I'm like, this is so weird. Like, I don't get it. And it was confusing to me. So I probably like that was like the biggest like identity shock as a Jewish person, because I was brought up like it was so different.
Yeah. And you were only around Jewish people your whole life, whereas like New York City is like the most diverse city in the world. Exactly. So like getting exposed to also all of these other cultures too, I can imagine was a shock. But also I actually remember watching the show and watching the scene where Ben was your ex-husband was very upset that you were wearing pants, or that you wanted to wear pants. So I think the show showed a few of your other like maybe arguments and things like that. But what was the main, I guess, thing that you guys just like fully didn't align on when you were going through this transition?
I think like ultimately we got to the point of being like modern Orthodox together. But when it came to like how we want to raise a family, like I realized I didn't want to be religious at all. And I didn't want a religious home. And he did. So it was kind of like one of us would have had to have given in. And I don't know how he lives his life now, but it was more in the moment at that time. Like I just didn't, and he respected me for doing what I wanted to do, but it was more like I believe that when you have kids, you should both be on somewhat of a similar page on how you want to raise your family. So even though like I started using my phone and driving in a car in Shabbat and he didn't, we still like he respected me for my decision. But like I think bringing in kids, it was just like we just didn't see eye to eye anymore. Whereas like until that point, we were always like kind of on the same page, or it was fine.
Yeah. And do you still talk to your ex-husband at all?
We're not like friends. No, if I needed to call him for something, I would, but we don't talk now. If I bumped into him in the street, I would catch up. No bad blood, but we're not in contact now.
Yeah. So, and you recently moved to Miami after living in New York. So what has that transition been like for you? And I guess like why did you decide to come to Miami?
When I was living in New York, like now I guess like 2 years ago, my lease in my apartment that I shared with him was up. I had renewed it for 1 year by myself, and like at the moment that felt like the right decision for me because getting a divorce and having to move just was too much. And then I was like, you know what, my lease is up. I've always loved Miami. Why don't I try it out? I had a few friends in social media also doing like subletting for 2 months. And so I decided to do it also. I ended up meeting my ex-boyfriend like 2 weeks before I moved. And he ended up moving down with me kind of for a few months. And we were going to move to Miami together. And then I was like obsessed with living here. I was so happy. And then we broke up. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to move by myself. I don't have friends down here. Like, I won't have a support system. I'm so close with my family. So I got a place in New York, and after a month, it was like October, right after October 7th. So like it was a really like scary time to be in New York as well. And I was like, I don't feel safe here, especially like with my public platform. And it's getting cold, and I'm just going to move to Miami. So I literally decided within like 3 weeks to move, found a place, had someone take over my lease, and I moved within a month. I was like a little crazy, but I was just like, I need to get out of here. I need a change, and like this will be growth. I can always come back if I want to. But it was the best decision ever.
Yeah. Well, you bring up a great point about, October 7th. And of course, I wanted to get into that with you, right? And being in New York, I mean, I can relate to that. I also moved down to Miami for like similar reasons, just not because I went through a divorce, but because, I just didn't feel super safe in New York. And, obviously you have a pretty large platform and a lot of your followers are probably Jewish. But, I guess post-divorce, did you end up meeting a more diverse group of friends, like being in New York City? And how have those people responded to your voice or your thoughts around the current situation in Israel?
Yeah, I definitely have a very diverse group of friends. But they've all been like super supportive. One of my two of my best friends, Meg and Audrey, the VIP list. Check them out. They do food reviews. They actually hosted a dinner with me at 12 Chairs in Brooklyn, like right after the day actually that I decided to move to Miami. We hosted a dinner to like raise money for United Hatzalah. So, and they were not Jewish at all. They were just like so supportive. So I've been very lucky to have friends like that. And then the friends who aren't supportive and then that's okay. Let them go. I lost like probably like 100,000 followers like over the course of a few months at that time. I also gained a lot of Jewish followers. But it was a horrible time to be on social media, like truly horrible. And obviously nothing like what everyone in Israel experienced, but it was really rough.
Yeah. So do you ever feel, I mean, obviously being in Miami, I'm sure you feel safe, but have there ever been times where you maybe like didn't feel safe because of, how big of a platform you have and being so vocal?
Yeah. More just like internally unsafe, just like mentally, because like messages are like so horrible, or like telling me that like they hope my dad burns and dies, like because I would talk about how my family's there, and if like something would go on, I couldn't get in touch with him. I don't know if you remember, like last year there was like a crazy amount of missiles. Was it even last year?
From Iran.
Yeah. And like my dad like texted us that he was in the shelter, and then I couldn't get through to him. Like none of our messages were going through, and we're all like watching on the TV like just like Israel being like bombarded, and hearing that like there had been contact and we couldn't get through to him. And I posted on my story being like, this is crazy. And like the amount of messages that I received were just like, hopefully he's dead. And I'm like, and I still get messages. I thought I've like blocked out all the words, all the people, but like somehow they still find me.
So you can block out some words that you don't want to see,
something
like on your...
Yeah, on Instagram is something called hidden words. So I put every phrase, spelling, like, because they'll try to misspell things.
Oh, so it'll pop up with like an @ sign or something. Right.
So I've put in like all the things. So at this point, like it's like really hard to get through in my comments if you're trying to send me hate. But
good, as it should be. Need to block out all the haters.
But I'm just like, just leave me alone. Like I'm not trying to come at you. But you realize how like horrible people are. Like they're just really bad people.
Really horrible. And I think, people feel like they can hide behind their screen and say what they want to say because there's no repercussion for that, unfortunately. Even like blocking on Instagram is really hard to do.
Yeah, honestly though, like there have been a lot of Jews that are also horrible, like telling me what I shouldn't say, if I'm not saying enough, if I'm saying too much.
Everyone's overly critical.
I had actually an instance when I first moved here. I went to I'm saying this because you have a Jewish audience, and I want them to know, like, whatever someone publicly is saying, especially of the public platform, like, you should support them so they'll talk more instead of being negative on them so they'll talk less.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, I think it's important to share, because I feel like the people who have hated on me that are Jewish, it hurts me like a million times more than like the random person who like hates me to hate me and they don't know anything about me. But that was like whenever like things like that happen, I'm always like, do you understand what you're doing right now? Because like I'm Jewish and you hating on me as a Jewish person is so horrible. And it hurts me like way more than the other people.
Yeah. Well, I guess like that is something I wanted to ask you too is did you ever like how does it feel to be able to have such a strong Jewish voice? Like and did you ever once contemplate being quiet about what's going on?
I never like wanted to be an activist. I would say like in my family, I'm like I don't speak as much as my family members do. Like my mom and my sister have like made it their mission and I'm so proud of them and I like admire everything that they do. I feel like I mix it in with my content. Obviously, like when everything was like super fresh, I always try to be like very respectful of what's going on as well. It's also how I pay my bills. And like I do feel like I reach an audience more because I don't only speak about that. But of course, like it's never been like a question in my mind if I'm like gonna not post about it or like not share because all the people who left me, like, I don't want you to follow me if you don't support who I am.
Yeah. Well, I just feel like there's a lot of people out there like you that have such a large platform that could have a voice and don't. So that's where that question comes from.
I try not to be judgmental. I am sometimes. I've definitely lost respect for a lot of people because I'm like, how, not that you need to talk, I don't talk about it all the time. Like I share when something big happens now. Obviously in the beginning, it was something I was like way more vocal about. But I still am like how like everyone like God forbid something happens like everyone knows you're Jewish so like what are you trying to hide like support a little bit sometimes doesn't have to be always but like I think even just like saying Shabbat Shalom something that you can just show your support because it goes a long way and I think people appreciate it.
Yeah, and it makes you, I think, like more real too. Like people value authenticity, and if you're trying to diminish like who you are at your core, I'm sure less people would actually want to like follow you and lean into like your own mission too, right? And
that's why like I'm very proud of like my name's super Jewish, so like, and I'll always lead with it because if I am talking like even within dating, I'm always like immediately like I'm Jewish, like, and I'm very proud of that. And if like someone has a problem or doesn't want to like get involved with me for that reason, like I just wouldn't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Like
what kind of name is Batsheva?
It's Hebrew.
Oh, it is Hebrew.
Yeah.
Okay. What does it mean in Hebrew?
Batsheva, daughter 7.
Okay.
But Batsheva is King David's wife. She was a queen.
Yeah. Queen Heart.
And yeah.
Love it.
Like thank you to my mom for naming me after a queen.
Name.
I try to embody it.
Yes, that's such a good name. Actually, I meant to ask you a question about like going back to the community.
Yeah.
Have there been any instances where girls from the community have maybe like gotten access to social media and like, and maybe you can't share this, but have reached out to you about wanting to leave?
I definitely have gotten a lot of messages like that. I don't usually engage in them because I feel like it's such a personal process. And I also think that I had like the support of my mom, whereas like, so that made my transition very easy. Like, I don't know how my mom did it. She kind of like went into like a blank canvas and like figured it out. So I have so much respect for her. But whenever I have responded, it's more like, don't do anything that you feel guilty about. Like, I don't feel guilty about the life that I live. I've never done anything. Like, that's why my transition was very gradual because I always thought, like, how do I feel about this? If I feel guilty, I'm not going to do it. And I think it's about, like, reprogramming your brain. So like, if anyone who is religious and is listening to this, if you're unhappy or want to change something, like, think about why. Like, my driving force was, like, what world do I want to raise my kids in? That's how I've, like, they don't exist right now, but they will. And I'm like, what is the world? Like, what do I like? What I don't like? How do I want to live? What kind of world would I want to be? If I were reborn, like what life would I want to be living in? I kind of lead that way. So if you are unhappy, then I would say to, think things through a little bit more. And ultimately, like, you're living your life for you. No one else is living it. So like, fuck their opinions. I don't know if we're allowed to curse. So,
please.
Fuck their opinions. You're the
cursing.
only one living your life. And don't care about what everyone thinks because, like, why?
I love that advice. And actually, like going on that topic too, is divorce really frowned upon in the ultra Orthodox community?
I think like less so now. I think especially now, like there unfortunately like so many people divorce with like little babies. Like it's way more like it's more common. Yeah. So I think people are like being, encouraged more to use birth control for like the first 6 months than not when I was getting married. Like, I don't know, I got married like 15 years ago. So then, or 13 years ago. So I think like now it's a little bit more common because there have been so many divorces. People are so young. But it wasn't like something that I thought about like being shunned in any way.
Yeah, I was curious if there would be like judgment from others because of that.
I mean, maybe, but not enough.
Okay, so let's get into, I guess, dating a little bit because I feel like I've watched your journey from afar of like seeing your TikToks like years ago when you first became single. And like, I think it seemed hard. Like you were in this new world, like you were your whole life growing up to just be with one guy and having sex with one man your whole life. Like
Yeah.
to now being in this free world, like how do you navigate that? That's just like a totally different world.
Yeah, I mean, the beginning, it was weird. It was very weird for me. And because I had never like really dated ever in my life.
And being divorced at, how old were you?
28.
28. Like to be divorced under 30,
Yeah.
especially in New York City when people are getting mostly married like after 30.
Yeah, like
is
me and
really
Emrata.
unusual. Yeah, literally you and Emrata.
She posted something, she was like, being divorced before you're 30 is chic. And I'm like, hell yeah.
And you're like, same sis.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can relate. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was really weird. But it was all, like once I like got out of it and like dipped my toe in, I went wild. I was like going on a million dates. I was literally thinking that on my way here. Like it's been almost a month since I've been on a date. I don't think I've ever not gone on a date in a month, except like post divorce and post breakup.
Wow.
So like I'm usually like I'm out and about.
So like a few dates a week we're talking.
Not now. When I first became single, I would go on like 4 to 7 dates. I would go from like one date to the next date. I would do like a happy hour date and then like a dinner or a drink date. I was wild.
Gosh. I don't know how you did that, but like I guess you gotta
loved
make up.
it.
You gotta make up for lost time.
Yeah, I was literally I made my like I think before I met my ex-boyfriend, I had been on 90 dates. Not 90 dates. I'd been out with 90 different men in like under a year or a year.
Oh my gosh, what are we averaging for? That's like
And I can't
even do the math. A lot of dates. Should we get off the phone? I'm like, how many dates?
I mean, like there's 56 weeks in a year. So like I was going.
So more than 2 dates a week.
Yeah.
That's like a big commitment. Wow.
Yeah, I was wild.
And were you drinking a lot? Like this is my issue with dating, especially in New York, is like it's mostly centered around drinking.
Yeah, I don't think I like overdrank ever. I would have like 1 or 2 drinks. For me, it was just fun. Like I was just like I love meeting new people. I like seeing new places. I loved like. I think the meeting new people, I was like, whoa, there are so many like different kinds of men. They all have different jobs. They lived in different places. They went to different colleges. I was just like learning. Because I like a lot of time, my like ex-boyfriend would always say like, I'm like a little kid sometimes. I haven't experienced so much in life. In the secular world, I was like brought up in a little bubble. So I think for me, it was like education to like learn about life, like talking to these guys about like growing up and college.
You're gathering all this data.
Yeah, I was gathering data. I was also learning like what I liked and didn't like in men. And it was like I'll never regret that time period in my life, like when I was like absolutely crazy.
Is there anything that you look back on when you were in that phase that just like makes your skin crawl and makes you cringe? Like, did you ever give yourself the ick looking back?
No, I just don't understand how I had the time. I understand how I had the time. I don't understand how I had the energy to talk to so many people. Like now you cannot pay me. Like I'm not now, like I'm so protective of my time and my peace. So like I haven't been on a date this month, not because like I haven't had the opportunity. I just like I don't need like the validation anymore, and I'm not curious about what I want. So I know. So if I meet you, and even if you maybe check like a few boxes, like I trust my intuition like super deeply now that I'm not going on a date like to go on a date.
Wait,
there has to be
so
something
crazy.
like way more.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that so much because I think like when you're younger, you are seeking that validation. Like, I don't think I've fully realized, like, that's why I was saying yes to all these dates in the past. It's because just like, oh, he likes me, like, might as well go out, even though you probably know deep down that, like, you're not going to be into him. But, like, there is some sort of validation seeking behind that, right? And it's like you kind of come into your own later on as a woman, and like you got to trust your intuition.
Yeah.
And say no to the date. It's okay to not go. You'll feel better if you don't go.
Yeah.
Probably.
But sometimes the people who don't go on dates, like, go on dates.
Right. I'm not saying not to go on dates. Exactly. Put yourself out there.
It depends where you're coming from. I think like it goes like I was on like the opposite side of the spectrum where I was like going insane, and then there's the other side where it's like not doing anything.
Right. There needs to be a middle ground.
There is a middle ground on like where it's healthy and where you're still like my lifestyle is very social. So like even though I'm not like on apps, like I'm being in places where I could meet someone. So if like I would say women who are listening, like either be on the apps or put yourself in situations where you can meet someone, because staying at home and complaining about how you're single is getting you nowhere.
Right. Absolutely nowhere. And it's also, I think being single is such a great time to just explore who you are. Like, I'm sure now, like, you have such a crazy perspective being like divorced and now having had this freedom, but now you're kind of refining the type of guy that you want because you've done it. You've gotten all the data points and now you know what you want.
Points. I can like now.
Which is freeing. It's like a great feeling though,
amazing.
Right?
And I also think like everyone you date like is teaching you more about what you want. And like I can look back at like in the past year and a half the guys that I've dated, because I've like since my ex-boyfriend I've been like way more on it. I'm not going on a million dates. I've like, you know, honed in a little bit. I don't need that validation as much. And I would say like I can like look at each person. I'm like, okay, I like that from him. I like did like a little Build-A-Bear. I'm like, okay, I like that from him. I like that from him. I like that from him. Like, okay, now I built this picture. I know what I want. I know what I need. Because I've like experienced it through different people. And like I believe that like my man like with those qualities exists now, because now I can envision what it would feel like to be with this imaginary human that I haven't met yet. Or maybe I have. I just like, I don't know.
So how do you, for women listening that are struggling, like knowing which dates to go on, which dates not to go on, like my friends and I talk about this a lot. Like recently we're trying to protect our peace, protect our energy. And there's always times where you're like, I know I'm probably not going to like him, so like why go? But then it's like the flip side of
you never know.
You never know. But I truly do believe that like at a certain stage, and like the stage you're describing now is like you trust your intuition so much. So how do you weed people out?
Now, well, for the past like since January, I've been doing like intensive inner work on myself, like ridiculous amount of like not really. I haven't been going to therapy, but I've been like working with like a life coach. I've been doing like intensive therapy and like inner child reprogramming, and like I've just been doing a lot of like meditation, journaling, and like all these questions and asking myself about like why I've been attracting these kinds of men. And there's this book called Calling in the One. I really recommend your followers check it out. A girl recommended it to me. Like I was dating this guy in the summer and he like really fucked with me, and he was really amazing until he was really not. And I never I was just like so down bad for a guy that I never like. He wasn't even my boyfriend, and I was like, how is this man who I dated for 6 weeks like making me feel this badly about myself? So I had to like look at myself, and I'm like, what, like why am I attracting like a man who could treat me this way? And the book is kind of about like taking accountability for being single, which I don't think women do, or men for that matter, and like learning like your patterns on like why you're attracted. And a lot of things like happen from childhood that wouldn't like, whenever I would like journal about things like what's your trauma, I'm like, I don't have trauma. Like I grew up ultra-orthodox and like religious, but like I'm very blessed. Like I feel very blessed with my childhood. But it could literally be like, you know, your teacher like getting you in trouble for something, or your mom telling you to be quiet when you were singing, and like that like your inner child will then process that into like, my voice isn't meant to be heard, which it was such like a small little thing, but that can ripple into something else. So it all kind of like teaches you. That was like my first turning point, that book, with like, wait, I need to take accountability for how I've been showing up for myself and to these people. And like, if I keep on seeing the same kind of guy, marrying the same traits over and over in different bodies, like why? That's like, this is a me problem.
That's a reflection of you, not them. I totally like can relate to that as well, because I do feel like, I mean, years ago when I was single in New York, like the desperate energy of like when you're going out to meet someone, right? It's like that kind of example of like the energy you're putting out there is the energy that you're receiving.
Exactly.
And it's like until you're fully confident with who you are and have done the work on yourself, are you going to like receive what you're giving out?
Yeah,
right?
I only realized I went on a meditation retreat last month, and in that retreat, it was my second one. It was with Joe Dispenza. And he's like, that's how I got introduced to like meditation. And that's completely changed my life. Like if anyone is going through it, I highly recommend. In the first retreat, I learned that like I can open myself up to love, because I think I had put this like really hard exterior on like not knowing what it felt like anymore, because it felt like so distant for me. And his meditations are all about like feeling love within yourself. And I think that's like a beautiful thing. And I learned that like I have infinite amount of love for me. So like I don't need that from anybody. Whenever someone loves me, it'll be like adding to my cup. But my cup is full with my personal love for myself. And therefore that can't be taken away with a breakup or a divorce or a situationship ending. Like no one can take away my love for me. So I think that was like a big shift. And then the other thing, the most recent retreat I went on, was I realized that like I know that I can love, but I was so scared of letting love in, because I was so miserable going through my divorce and I was so heartbroken. I like told myself I'll never do it again. And I remember saying that out loud, but I must have subconsciously like made that a belief. And I realized I've been attracting, I would always describe guys to my friends, I'm like forward facing, they want a relationship, they want to settle down, they want the family, they want all the things. But then like when it came to taking that next step, they would be like, oh, like I actually realized I'm not ready. And I'm like, why does this keep on happening? For a year I was dating, like basically date the same kind of guy. And then I realized it was because subconsciously I was too scared of letting someone hurt me, that I was attracting men who were literally me as a mirror. And so now I know that I'm ready, because I'm not scared of being hurt anymore, because I know that like no one can take away my love for myself. And I'm not going to be attracting the men anymore who aren't available for like the love that I'm ready to receive and give.
Isn't that so interesting though? At the time, like you thought you were ready, right?
Oh, for sure.
And now you look back and you're like, I was also emotionally unavailable. That's why I was attracting an emotionally unavailable person.
Mm-hmm. That was a really hard thing for me to like admit to myself. I did not want to admit that.
Well, on that same note, I saw that you just released a new course.
Yes.
Which is really exciting. So congratulations. It's called The Beginning of the End.
Yes.
So can you share a little bit more about it and what inspired it?
So my content, if you follow me on social media, I've made it like me being a glorified single girl. And for the past like, I don't know, year, 6 months, I've been trying to step away from that, because I was like, I don't feel single. I'm working on like finding like that calling in the one. It's like, what are you projecting to the world? Like I'm telling everyone I'm single, I'm making fun of being single. I'm like trying to make it a funny thing, which it is. Like that content for me at that point was beautiful, and I'm so happy that I did. But I just felt disconnected from it. So I've been sharing more on like personal growth. And I realized that like the beauty in what I've experienced is that I can show like how I got from like, you know, going through a divorce to like becoming single, and then now being in this place where I like finally know that I'm ready for love 3.5 years later. It's been a long journey. So I decided to start with the course called The Beginning of the End, How to Know When to Leave, because when I was going through my divorce, or really my breakup or ending situationships, I was like looking for like information online to like help me decide what to do. And I found that there was nothing besides therapy. And I love therapy, but therapy is also really expensive. And if I would have been able to like download a course where like it has like a bunch of, it's video lessons, worksheets to like ask you questions about how you're feeling, journal prompts, affirmations. And I felt like it's everything that I needed before I got divorced that would have helped me come to the decision. So it's not a course telling you to break up. It's more like, what do you really want? Maybe you realize that you really want to stay with the person you're with. Or maybe you realize like you really don't. And it will help you have the courage to take that next step.
That's awesome. And I feel like so many people could use something like that because it is really difficult to know like when it's time to either end something or like commit to something. Do you feel like when you were going through your divorce, like it took you a little bit longer to get there?
Oh, it took me so long. It was a really, really hard decision because he was my best friend and like we had a really beautiful relationship. And it wasn't something that I think there's like a common misconception that just because you walk away, it means like you wanted to. Like I didn't want to walk away, but I knew I had to. And I think that's like a decision that a lot of women and men are sometimes faced with, where they like love their partner, but they know that there's something else out there for them. And they struggle to take that next step because they're comfortable, or they're like, what if I don't find anything different? But like, I'm here to tell you, like, I would never change my decision. Like it was most definitely the right decision for me, even though it's been hard and it's had its challenges. I've never looked back because all the questions I include in the program, those are all the things I asked myself. So when I made the decision, there was no looking back.
And I think that's such a great message to anyone listening. And, you know, it's a beautiful thing to go through something so hard and difficult and know that you can come out on the other side and grow from it. And I think that's life, right? Growth is not easy, but it sometimes takes a really drastic decision and choice to get to that point. And yeah, I think like, especially with societal pressure today too, of like being single at 30. And it's like, as a woman, that's like so frowned upon. I mean, I think nowadays it's definitely a little bit more normalized, thank God, to be single in your 30s and, you know, go for the right thing. But, you know, what's worse, being with someone that you're not meant to be with, or trying to make a relationship work that you know is just not working? You know, I'd rather be alone.
I would rather, yeah. I mean, I think especially divorce, it's like you don't get divorced unless you'd rather be alone, or like, no. I knew that I would rather the possibility of maybe being alone than knowing what my life would look like. And I think that a lot of women face that. And I want to also specify, this isn't just for like divorce. This is for like relationships, situationships, like any time that you're like, ooh, like I don't know how I feel, I don't know what the right choice is, like this will help you come to those conclusions.
That's awesome. So where can people actually find access to the course?
You can find it linked in all of my social media channels at Batsheva Haart. You can also find it on Stan Store at Batsheva, like the / Batsheva Haart. That's where the course is hosted. And yeah, it's on sale right now for $44.
Amazing. I love the sales pitch. So I want to get to just some fun last minute questions. What is the most extravagant date you have ever been on?
Being flown to Saint-Tropez for dinner.
For dinner? You're kidding.
That's definitely most extravagant for like a one night, like a one date. Yeah. I was in Monaco and in the summer, and I had matched with this guy on an app. I like apps when you're traveling are like so fantastic. I highly recommend people utilize them. And my friend had gone out with him, so like he was Jewish. I knew he was like safe. You know, I would never do this with like a random man. But I was in Monaco, he was in Saint-Tropez, and he was like, let's do dinner. I was like, we're like 2 hours away from each other. And he was like, why don't I just send you a blade? I'll pick you up and then I can drive you home after. And I was like, okay.
I would not say no to that. Yeah, that's amazing.
So I went on the date, we had dinner, we went out, and then he drove me home.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That is so, see, like, when can you ever, like, if you're not single to have that story, like, you can look back now and just
also
be like,
don't
look
feel
at all these
pressure to do anything.
Right.
I didn't do anything.
Go to dinner.
I went to dinner.
Get the free meal.
Yeah, just have a good time.
That's
Live your
awesome.
life.
Live your life. Oh, that's a great story. Okay, last question. Are you only going for Jewish guys?
No. I feel like if I had to put money on it, I'll end up with someone Jewish, but I am open-minded. I want a Jewish home. So as long as they're cool with that, I'm cool.
Okay. Wow. Cool girl. Chill girl. Wow.
Definitely not cool or chill.
Definitely not cool or chill.
But when it comes to this, I'm open-minded.
Open-minded queen we have here. Well, thanks, Batsheva. It was great having you on. Really appreciate it.
Nice to meet you guys.